Good evening, everyone. We've all been there, haven't we? Those moments where it feels like our minds are our own worst enemies, where every thought we have pulls us deeper into a cycle of doubt, fear, and negativity. It's like being caught in a storm with no shelter in sight. But here's what I want you to understand today: you are more powerful than that storm. You see, our thoughts have power. So much power, in fact, that they shape our reality. When we allow negative thinking to take root, it colors every aspect of our lives, our relationships, our goals, our self-worth. It tells us we're not enough, that we'll never succeed, that life is too hard. But just as easily as we can think ourselves into darkness, we can think ourselves into the light. I'm not saying it's easy, because I know it's not. Breaking free from negative thinking is not a one-time decision, it's a daily choice. It's about recognizing when those thoughts start creeping in and making a conscious decision to shift your mindset. And here's the truth: you always have a choice. Even when life feels overwhelming, even when the obstacles seem too big to overcome, you can choose how you respond. And that's where the power lies, in the choice. You can choose to stay stuck, replaying the same old narratives in your mind, or you can choose to see the possibility. You can choose to focus on what's not working, or you can choose to focus on what could be. It's not always about having the answer, but about having the courage to ask a different question. What if it could be different? Now, let me tell you something else. You are worthy. Yes, you, worthy of joy, of love, of success. And that negative voice in your head, it doesn't define you. It never did. You are so much more than those doubts and fears. And it's time you start affirming that. Every day, remind yourself of your worth. Speak kindly to yourself. Speak life into your dreams, your goals, and your heart. And when fear tries to paralyze you, and believe me, it will take action. Even the smallest step forward is a victory, because action is the antidote to fear. Every time you push forward, even when it's hard, even when you don't know what's on the other side, you're breaking the hold that negativity has on you. You're creating momentum. You're proving to yourself that you can, that you will. Breaking negative thinking is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about reclaiming your power to choose, to affirm your worth, and to take action toward the life you deserve. So the next time you find yourself in the storm of negative thoughts, I want you to remember this: you are the sky. The storm will pass, and you have the power to shine again. Our thoughts are the silent architects of our lives. Most of us don't realize just how much they shape our experiences, our perceptions, and our future. Think about it for a moment. Everything you do, everything you feel, starts with a thought. It's easy to overlook because we're used to the constant chatter in our minds, but that inner dialogue has tremendous power. It can be a force of creation or a force of destruction, depending on the narrative we choose to follow. When negativity creeps into our thinking, it doesn't just affect our mood, it affects how we see ourselves and the world around us. It colors our reality in shades of doubt, insecurity, and fear. We start believing that the worst-case scenario is the most likely outcome. We become trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, where each negative thought feeds the next. The more we think we can't, the more we act like we can't, and the more we reinforce that belief within ourselves. But here's the important thing: that cycle can be broken. And it starts with acknowledging that our thoughts have this power. Once we become aware of the role our thinking plays in shaping our lives, we can start to challenge those thoughts instead of simply accepting them as truth. We can begin to see that just because we think something doesn't make it real. A negative thought is not a fact. It's simply a perspective one that we can choose to change. This realization is liberating. It means that we don't have to be prisoners of our minds. We can learn to recognize when our thoughts are dragging us down, and we can consciously decide to shift them. It doesn't happen overnight, but with practice, we can cultivate a mindset that is more positive, more empowering, and more aligned with the life we truly want to live. It's like planting seeds. If we consistently plant seeds of doubt and negativity, we can't be surprised when they grow into weeds that choke out our confidence and joy. But if we start planting seeds of hope, self-belief, and possibility, something extraordinary begins to happen. Those seeds take root. They grow stronger over time, and before we know it, our entire inner landscape starts to change. Our thoughts are powerful beyond measure. They are the starting point for everything we create in our lives, whether we realize it or not. By acknowledging that power, we take the first step toward breaking free from negativity and creating a life that reflects our highest potential. Every moment of our lives, we are faced with choices. Some are small, almost unnoticeable, while others feel monumental. But what we often forget is that the most impactful choices aren't necessarily the big, life-altering decisions. They are the quiet, constant choices we make in our minds every day, especially when it comes to how we think. When life feels overwhelming or when challenges seem insurmountable, it's easy to slip into negative thinking. We start to believe that we have no control, that things are happening to us, and that we're simply at the mercy of circumstance. But the truth is, no matter what's going on around us, we always have the power to choose how we respond. That power lies within us. It's in the choices we make about what we focus on, what we believe, and how we move forward, even in the face of adversity. It's important to understand that choosing how we think doesn't mean denying reality or pretending everything is perfect. Life will throw challenges our way. There will be setbacks, disappointments, and moments of pain. But even in those moments, we get to decide how we frame the situation. Do we see it as a roadblock, something that will stop us in our tracks? Or do we see it as an opportunity for growth, for learning, for building resilience? The choice is ours. Making the choice to think differently is not always easy. In fact, it can be one of the hardest things we do, because negative thinking is often habitual. We've practiced it for so long that it feels natural. But the beauty of being human is that we are not bound by our habits. We can choose at any moment to create a new way of thinking. It might not come naturally at first, but just like any muscle, the more we exercise our ability to choose positive, constructive thoughts, the stronger that ability becomes. This shift is profound, because when we recognize that we have a choice, we reclaim our power. No longer are we passive participants in our own lives, subject to whatever thoughts happen to cross our minds. Instead, we become active creators of our experience. We can choose thoughts that uplift us, thoughts that empower us, and thoughts that open the door to new possibilities. In those moments when it feels like life is spiraling out of control, we can anchor ourselves in the knowledge that we do have control, at least over our inner world. We can choose to focus on the things we can change, rather than obsessing over what we can't. We can choose gratitude over resentment, hope over despair, and action over inaction. And here's the magic: the more we practice making these choices, the more our external world begins to reflect our inner choices. When we choose to focus on possibilities, we start to see them everywhere. When we choose to believe in ourselves, we act with more confidence, and doors we didn't even know existed start to open. When we choose to view challenges as opportunities, we become more resilient, more capable of navigating whatever life throws our way. It's easy to feel like our circumstances are in control, but the reality is how we respond to those circumstances, what we think, what we believe, and what we choose to focus on is always within our control. Every day we are faced with countless opportunities to make those choices. And while it may not always feel like it, those choices are the most powerful tools we have in shaping the course of our lives. The choice is always yours. You can choose to dwell on what's not working, or you can choose to see the potential in every situation. You can choose to be stuck, or you can choose to move forward, even if the path is uncertain. You can choose to let fear rule you, or you can choose to take a step toward the life you truly want. The decision is yours, and it is in those decisions that your future is created. In the hustle and noise of life, it's easy to lose sight of one essential truth: you are worthy. Not because of what you've accomplished, what you own, or how others see you, but simply because of who you are. Yet, in a world that constantly measures us against impossible standards, it's common to doubt that worth. We compare ourselves to others, criticize our every flaw, and start to believe the negative stories we tell ourselves. But here's the thing: your worth isn't up for debate. It isn't something that changes with the ups and downs of life. It's inherent, unshakable, and deserves to be recognized by the most important person in your life, you. Self-worth is not about arrogance or thinking you're better than anyone else. It's about understanding that you have value simply because you exist. But for many of us, embracing that idea feels unnatural. We've been conditioned to think that our worth is something we have to earn through success, approval, or meeting certain expectations. So when things don't go as planned or we fall short of those expectations, we start to question ourselves. We let negative self-talk creep in, and before long, we're defining ourselves by our mistakes and shortcomings. But affirming your worth means reclaiming your narrative. It means quieting that critical voice in your head that says you're not enough and replacing it with a voice that speaks truth. The truth is, you are more than your mistakes. You are more than the opinions of others. You are more than the roles you play in other people's lives. Your worth isn't dependent on anything external. It's rooted deep inside you, waiting to be recognized and nurtured. One of the most powerful ways to affirm your worth is through self-talk. The words we speak to ourselves hold immense power. If you're constantly telling yourself that you're not good enough, that you'll never succeed, or that you don't deserve happiness, those thoughts start to take root. They shape your actions, your beliefs, and your reality. But if you choose to speak to yourself with kindness, compassion, and encouragement, something beautiful happens. You begin to shift the way you see yourself. You begin to cultivate a sense of inner strength that isn't swayed by external circumstances. Affirming your worth means practicing this every day, even when it feels uncomfortable or forced. It's about reminding yourself of your strengths, your resilience, and your unique gifts. It's about looking in the mirror and acknowledging the person you see, not just for who you are right now, but for the potential that lies within you. It's saying, I am enough. I am deserving of love, success, and joy. I don't have to prove myself to anyone, including myself. It's important to remember that this isn't a one-time thing. Affirming your worth is an ongoing practice. It requires patience and consistency, especially if you've spent years believing otherwise. There will be days when doubt creeps back in, when you feel like you're not measuring up, or when life's challenges make it hard to stay grounded in your worth. On those days, it's even more important to return to your affirmations. To remind yourself that your worth doesn't fluctuate based on your circumstances. You are just as worthy on your hardest days as you are on your best ones. And the more you affirm your worth, the more it starts to reflect in the way you live. You begin to set boundaries that honor your value. You stop settling for relationships, jobs, or situations that don't align with your self-worth. You start to make choices that reflect your belief in yourself, because when you truly know your worth, you no longer tolerate anything less than what you deserve. There's incredible freedom in this. When you affirm your worth, you free yourself from the need for external validation. You stop looking for others to approve of you or to give you permission to feel good about yourself. Instead, you create a solid foundation of self-worth that isn't dependent on anyone or anything outside of you. This is a journey, and like any journey, it takes time. But the more you commit to affirming your worth, the more it becomes a part of who you are. You start to carry yourself differently. You walk through the world with a quiet confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, your value is intact. So every day, take a moment to affirm your worth. Speak words of encouragement to yourself, especially when you're feeling down. Treat yourself with the same kindness and compassion you would offer to a dear friend. Because at the end of the day, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And when you affirm your worth, you lay the foundation for a life built on self-respect, self-love, and unwavering confidence. Fear is a powerful emotion. It has the ability to stop us in our tracks, to make us question ourselves, and to keep us from pursuing what we truly want. It's easy to let fear dictate our choices, to let it whisper that we're not ready, not capable, or that the risk is too great. But if there's one thing that can dismantle fear, it's action. Not grand, sweeping gestures, but small, consistent steps that move us forward, even when we're scared. Action, no matter how modest, is the antidote to fear. Fear often thrives in inaction. When we sit in indecision, waiting for the perfect moment, or waiting until we feel completely ready, fear grows. It feeds on our hesitation, making the obstacles seem bigger and more insurmountable than they really are. The longer we wait, the more daunting the task becomes. Fear, in its nature, distorts reality. It magnifies the worst-case scenario, convincing us that the risks are too high or that failure is inevitable. But the truth is, fear loses its grip the moment we decide to act. Taking action doesn't mean that fear goes away completely. It's not about eliminating fear, but about learning to move forward despite it. Often we believe that we need to feel fearless before we can act. But courage is not the absence of fear, it's taking action in the face of it. Every step you take, even a small one, is a signal to yourself that you are stronger than your fear. Each action, no matter how small, builds momentum. It's that momentum that starts to shift the balance, gradually quieting the voice of fear and amplifying the voice of possibility. When you take action, you begin to learn things that fear could never teach you. Fear keeps you trapped in your imagination, where the worst-case scenarios play out on an endless loop. But action grounds you in reality. It shows you what's actually possible, what you're actually capable of. You begin to see that many of the things you feared were never as daunting as they seemed. Maybe you stumble, maybe you fail, but even that failure is valuable because it teaches you something that fear alone never could. With every step, you're gaining experience, resilience, and a deeper understanding of yourself. Action is also a form of self-trust. When you act, you're telling yourself, I believe in my ability to handle whatever comes my way. You may not know all the answers, and you may not have everything figured out, but you trust that you can figure it out as you go. That's powerful. Fear thrives on doubt, doubt in yourself, doubt in your abilities, doubt in the future. But when you act, you begin to replace that doubt with evidence that you are capable. Every action is proof that you're moving forward, that you're learning, growing, and building the life you want. There's something else that happens when you choose action over fear. You expand your comfort zone. Fear tends to shrink our world. It convinces us to stay in the familiar, to stick with what's safe and known. But every time you take action, especially when it's uncomfortable, you're stretching beyond those boundaries. You're creating new possibilities for yourself. What once felt impossible or terrifying becomes manageable, even routine. Your comfort zone grows, and with it, your confidence. You start to see yourself as someone who can take risks, who can handle uncertainty, and who can rise to the challenge. This doesn't mean that fear will never return. It will. Every new challenge, every big decision will bring with it a fresh wave of uncertainty. But the difference is that once you've practiced choosing action over fear, you know how to handle it. You know that the key is not to wait until the fear goes away, but to take that first step, even when your heart is racing and your doubts are loud. You understand that the only way to quiet fear is through action. There's incredible freedom in this realization. When you know that fear doesn't have to stop you, you start to take bolder, more intentional steps toward your goals. You stop waiting for perfect conditions or perfect confidence. Instead, you start creating the conditions for your success. Fear becomes less of a roadblock and more of a signpost, pointing you toward the areas where you need to grow. You begin to see fear as something to walk through, not something to avoid. Ultimately, action is a declaration of your commitment to yourself and your dreams. It's saying, I'm willing to try. Even if I don't know the outcome, it's acknowledging that fear is a part of the process, but it doesn't have to control the process. Every action you take is a step closer to the life you want, and with each step, fear's grip loosens just a little more. So whenever you feel fear rising, ask yourself, what's one small action I can take today? It doesn't have to be a leap, it can be a single step. But in that step, you are reclaiming your power. You are choosing growth over comfort, progress over paralysis. And in that choice, fear begins to lose its hold, and you start to move toward the life you were meant to live.